Thank you and welcome to the show for today. The topic of this morning's episode is artist development and independent production in Tennessee. This morning on Perspectives, I have Jay Lawrence, Marc Weber, and Lil Trip here to discuss their individual careers, their backgrounds, their educations, their experiences in the music industry, and ultimately the impact that they seek to leave on Tennessee communities. Guys, thank you for joining me this morning, and let's get the ball rolling.
Glad to be here.
Y'all good?
Great.
We're good. Jay Lawrence, we're going to get started with you. Tell me about your background. Tell me about those kind of baby J years.
Baby J years. I moved to Nashville from Michigan at a young, probably 6 or 7 years old. And I grew up in the music business, watching my dad and my uncle be musicians, and just caught the bug at a young age, going to studio sessions, going to club events and touring events with them. So I was out on the road early as a kiddo.
So I see it was like in the house really for you.
Yeah.
And Marc, kind of tell me those baby Marc years.
Yeah, so my name is Marc Weber. I go by the producer name of Webbs, and I'm from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Things were pretty great down there. Had a bit of hardship. My mom got cancer 3 times when I was a child, and definitely was very formative to my experience. It made me feel very independent. I didn't really want to put burden on her, and created a really good work ethic for me, and kind of led me to exploring my options in the music industry, opening up my own studio, and just trying to impact the community as well as I can through that.
How'd you get down here?
So I went to Belmont University. Used to go to the University of Florida, actually. I was a biomedical engineer.
Wow.
Hated every second of it. And I went to a music festival, really enjoyed the environment there, and just realized I wanted to be in the music industry. So I applied to Belmont, got in, and the rest is kind of history.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And Trip, that same background. Tell me like baby Lil Trip years.
Man, I'm born in Nashville. I was raised in Paducah, Kentucky, a small town, and that's when I started knowing how I wanted to rap. I used to watch 106 & Park, and Bow Wow came on one time, and I knew then, like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. Like, so since then, it's been raps. My granny would play the organ for me, and I just sit in the mirror. I used to go on like her porch, and I used to think the grass was my fans. I sit on the porch and interview stuff like this. So that's really how I started.
Now, I have to ask about you guys' early beginnings in music, and you all kind of let a little of it out already, but Trip, I want to start with you. Tell me what the rap scene in Paducah looked like when you were a kid.
I mean, it was no rappers. It was like kind of like the older guys it was probably a few of them that rapped, but other than that, there was no rappers in Paducah at all.
And tell me kind of the music scene both in Florida and then transitioning to Tennessee kind of in college, what those scenes looked like, Marc.
Florida's scene is a lot more close-knit, I would say. The communities there are very supportive of each other, a lot of different kinds of music, and I think because of that diversity in music, it creates a lot of support amongst everybody. There doesn't, no sense of competition, just people supporting good music and good folks, and I would say it's very similar up here in Nashville. You got a little bit of clickiness, but at the end of the day,
a lot of clickiness.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are trying to support each other and kind of help the next person get out of Nashville, so to speak, and go worldwide. So yeah.
And Jay, tell me, just I know you were talking about your family going to these events, but tell me really getting your footing into artist development, and you kind of have a different trail than my 2 other guys, but telling me about that inspiration behind artist development.
Well, I went to TSU. I was the outside of my family. The majority of my family went to TSU that I was married into to get down to Nashville. And so they didn't have the programs that I wanted to get into the music business. So I went to TSU, and a guy in my dorm dragged me down to Memphis and dragged me into this big old studio session. And long story short, that studio session was 3 6 Mafia. And when we started having these conversations about getting publishing done and getting paperwork done, a lot of those people in that session hadn't had that done. And so I said, guess what? I'll do that for y'all.
And that was kind of like the early beginning. Now, in this last minute, and I kind of want to hear just a small answer from all of y'all, I want to know, what does artist development mean to you in a sentence? And Jay, I'm going to skip you since you just talked, but Marc, tell me kind of what does artist development mean? And I know you kind of fall more on the production end, but what does that mean to you?
Definitely just guidance, being there for the artists. I think a lot of times people think it means imposing your will on them, and it's definitely more about leading them where they are trying to go, not leading them where you want them to go.
And Trip, would you agree, or kind of how do you feel about artist
Yeah, because
development?
from an artist standpoint, I feel like it's more like preparation. It's just getting you prepared for what's really going to happen in the music industry. I feel like it's important.
So kind of like that foundational knowledge before really, getting out in front of these sharks.
Exactly.
Right.
And in our second segment, we're going to pick back up on what artist development means. We're going to talk about independent production in Tennessee and its importance and what kind of independent production looks like here in Tennessee. We're going to talk about some of the studio offerings and some of the businesses and courses that you guys offer, and ultimately ways that we can support y'all and ways that y'all support Tennessee. I encourage our viewers to tune into the second segment of Perspectives, where we will return to discuss artist development and independent production in Tennessee. Second segment of the show for today. For viewers just tuning in, I am host Alana McLaughlin. You are watching Perspectives. This morning on Perspectives, I am discussing artist development and independent production in Tennessee. And I have three individuals here who are here to discuss their backgrounds, their educations, their music industry experience and work, and ultimately the impact they seek to leave on Tennessee musicians and Tennessee communities alike. Guys, we're coming right back in where we just left off at. We were talking about just kind of the early years of you all. And now I really want to break down what this episode is about: artist development and independent production. In our first segment, we talked about artist development in a short form. We talked about what it means, kind of like that early guidance for young artists who are, getting their foot in the door. I want to talk about independent production. I'd say in the last few years, independent artistry and independent production has had a boom. Or maybe I've just started paying attention in the last few years. But seriously, I was even talking to Janira Hawkins from the Southern Entertainment Awards, and we were talking about how 21 years ago, there was this need for a space to highlight independent artists and producers, and he created that space. We've talked about, other events that have followed, but seriously, we've seen in the last 20 years, there's been a lack of support for independent artists and producers. So now, Mark, I want to ask you, what does independent production mean?
I think it looks a lot of different ways, right? So I run a recording studio. I think the main thing that I really focused on when I was building it was just giving people a quality experience, both in the sound and in the vibe, in every aspect of the word. I wanted to give them an experience that they would remember and that they would want to come back for. I think nowadays, I probably could have cut a lot of costs and still built what would be considered a successful studio. The barrier for entry right now is probably the lowest it's ever been. I mean, if you have $1,000, you can get enough gear that would make you sound close enough to professional that it would fool people.
Wow.
And that's, like you said, something that we've never seen before in history. It used to be that you needed about $50,000 to open up a studio. Even mine, where I didn't really want to cut costs, and I definitely splurged and tried to get as best of gear as I could, probably did it with about $20,000 or $30,000. And that was from the ground up. So that included acoustic treatment, repainting, remodeling. We have a full 40-channel Allen and Heath audio desk in there. We have Neve preamps, tube tech compressors, like just about anything you would need to sound as good as like Drake or Travis Scott or any of those guys sound. But at the end of the day, you also have these kids who buy $1,000 worth of audio gear, and they're producing results that are close enough that most people will be like, oh my gosh, like, where did you record this? This sounds incredible. And in reality, they recorded it in their bedroom, send it off to an engineer who mixed it down for them, send it off to a mastering guy to master it, and then they're dropping it, and you don't even know the wiser. So.
And Mark, I want to ask, as a producer, where do you feel like this rise of independent production came from? Because like you think back in the day, that equipment, all the stuff you just named, Def Jam is handling that. Capitol's handling that. BMI, they have people that are hired within their own little realm. There wasn't so much, those independent units. How would a producer even go independent? I mean, are you just walking into these music stores, like purchasing stuff?
In all technicalities, you're independent until one of those things decide to pick you up.
Yeah.
So, the minute you start buying stuff and creating, you are in all technicalities an independent producer. So,
oh yeah, wow.
Yeah, so it just pretty much turns into like this conversation of do you want to stay independent?
Right.
Or do you want to get picked up by one of these labels? Some people choose to go independent because they have the infrastructure to support it. I actually work with an artist who does have the like the resources to support such an endeavor, and it's really tough for him because he doesn't have that label support. Thankfully, he has enough of an infrastructure to support his dreams, and he's going down that route until he can't anymore. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot more of.
And that segues perfectly into what I was going to ask, and this is kind of for anyone to jump into. What are some of the pros and cons of independent artistry and production? I know, Mark, you just named one. If you don't have that backing behind you, getting these hits and getting these plays is going to be hard. But tell me again some of the things that you guys think of, pros or cons, in terms of this independent artistry. And Trip, I especially want to hear from you as that artist.
I feel like the pros of being independent, you kind of learn the music business, like from a one point standpoint, I would say. And then I feel like having a backing, it just teaches you. I mean, don't get me wrong, having a backing is not bad, but I feel like knowing and going into independent, you got a better chance of outlasting people
because you're not reliant.
You're going through the hard labor, like you're really seeing it from the ground up. Versus, like you just said, you can have Capital, BMI come in and take over, but then you got many artists look up and they don't even know what's going on in their business. They don't even know what's going on in the studio
or in their wallet, in that
that too.
bag.
That too, because you'll be in the studio all day and that's coming out your check. So coming out your own pocket, you treat it a little better. Like even like you just said, owning the studio. Yeah, there's ways that we be wanting to cut costs, but when you really love it, like you just said, when you really do this for real, you try to just excel with it. So I feel like it makes you a monster in this stuff.
Now, Jay or anybody else, any more pros or cons in working independently? Independently.
Man, that's a loaded question. So being that I work for a major label during the day, and I also get to see the independent side.
Right.
And being able to meet artists like Lil Trip and others, you know, I have a different comment on that.
Right.
A lot of artists need structure. A lot of times independently you don't have that. So therefore you meet an artist that wheels are spinning for years and they either make it over that hump mentally or they don't. And being signed to a label has the pros and cons as well because you have the infrastructure.
Right.
And you have the resources.
Right.
But 9 times out of 10, to get to a certain space of the business, you're gonna have to have a resource and you're gonna need them. And a lot of times independently, you will never attain those resources because, like I tell people, how long have labels been around? For ages.
Yeah.
You can't account for those resources because you haven't been around that long.
Right.
And they're gonna have endless resources. So a lot of times you end up in those spaces because these pockets, they get a little thin, you know, going independently with a lot of these guys, and it's frustrating to see. But you know, it's all based off of however you feel comfortable moving, and if you had the opportunity. But 9 times out of 10, you're gonna need these resources, whether it's distribution from a label or an advertising deal for a label, or you know, we can keep going down the line, and a lot of different deals are there. So.
But now let's examine, is it possible to reach these heights without that back? I mean, it's physically possible, but...
Oh yeah, it's possible.
Social media.
Oh, and you just brought up a good one. TikTok. Mark, I see your ad, and I see your ads, and your ads, and my ads all the time. Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. And seriously, that social media, it pushes you. But do we feel like social media alone could propel a career? And that's open-ended. Yeah, feel free.
Definitely.
That's the visual piece of it. But when it comes to like true resourcing, I do know a few artists that have spent thousands, and what happens is a lot of time in these deals now, guess what? They get that social media.
Right.
It's part of that deal.
Oh.
And you can also use that social media as leverage in your deal if you utilize it correctly. And I have seen artists paying for ads, and it's a lot of pieces to it. So it's good to be visual, of course, in that, but on that next level, it changes because the label's probably going to want access to that social media if you built it. And more likely, if you're paying for ads, that's what usually happens. People start following you.
And so if you try to walk away from the label, you walk away from that.
You lose your social media, you lose your name, or whatever is tied to that deal, depending on what structure you have. Yeah.
And in our final say, we're going to pick back up on just some of the things that young independent artists and producers should be wary of when they're talking to these resources and to these companies. And I encourage our viewers to tune into the final segment of Perspectives, where we will be discussing independent artistry, artist production, artist development, and independent production in Tennessee, and the impact that these guys seek to leave on Tennessee communities.
is Crime Time. All week long.
Really was thinking that we are going to do her and her family justice.
You're looking at a very long stretch in a very small cell.
Monday, Law and Order Special Victims Unit.
Just got to get a confession or it walks.
No pressure.
Tuesday, Chicago Fire.
Looks like burnt popcorn, boys.
Wednesday, Dateline.
I kept thinking, no, it can't be.
Thursday, Dateline and Chicago PD.
It's way above our heads.
Go, go, go! And Friday, Chicago PD.
I work for Chicago. You understand?
Welcome to the final segment of the show for today. For viewers just tuning in, I am host Alana McLaughlin, and you are watching Perspectives. This morning on Perspectives, I am discussing artist development and independent production in Tennessee. In the first two segments, we talked about what independent artistry may look like for artists. We talked about some of the pros and cons of working independently as opposed to working with a record label, or with a distributor. And ultimately, we're going to pick back up on my three guests and on the things that they do in the community and ways that we can support them. Jay, tell me what Six Square Academy is. I see you got the hoodie on, and just run it down to me. Mission, purpose, all the good stuff.
Good. So Six Square Academy it's my baby. I created it probably a year and a half ago. The idea came pre-COVID and struck me in the head during COVID. Basically what I do is I focus on artists and mental health. A lot of artists are gifted, but have a problem with the balance of being real people.
Yeah.
I like to tell artists, you have the Lil Trips and all these artists that once you come off stage, you got to go home. Before you get to the stage, you're at home. And there's a balance there. And so I use Six Square Academy as a support system for the artist. And on the flip end of that, I help teach the business so they can understand what BMI, ASCAP does. Because a lot of these artists don't have their music registered.
Right.
And they've been pushing music for years and don't really understand the basics. And in the academy, currently I have everybody from a guy that records on a cell phone up into, I do have one gold singer-songwriter that's gold and platinum. So I got everybody in between those spaces. So it's usually nothing I haven't heard in those spaces, but all of them are similar. There's not too much difference in their situation, so that's what we shoot towards, is to be a support system for the artist.
And now tell me, I kind of want to even get into specifics. A young artist is coming to you, great music, great potential, but can't stop fighting people at the venues. Fight the bartender, you fight the DJ, you fight security. And these are real, I'm thinking about my own friends. Great artists, can't stop fighting people. And you're just known around Nashville for like, oh my, sounds really good, but like, get her out of here. What would, and Mark, you're laughing, but we know about 10 people who are just so talented, but just can't stop bothering people. Tell me the first thing you would do with that artist.
The first thing I do is that sets my meetings apart is I talk to them directly. So I don't call them by the artist name, I call them by the government name.
Ooh.
And we start there because they're used to people, calling them that. Not that I don't, but I connect with them on a base level to really get to know them as people. Because what happens a lot of times in their situation or their deal, the label or whoever aren't seeing them as real people. So guess what? Now, those people send them to Jay because they know I care about them. And so in that instance, we had those conversations, what's going on at the house? When we meet, I have girls that have kids screaming in the background, and I have guys that got baby mama screaming in the background that don't care that they're going out and performing, and there's really no support. And so 9 times out of 10, that's usually the problem why they get in these things. But in what you said, what I find out over this year and a half is that a lot of artists are introverted.
Yes.
And so being on the stage in front of people, it causes those reactions. And a lot of times, and obviously you add whatever substances that come into play in that, and that's where the reaction comes from in that instance.
And let's call a spade a spade. I feel like alcohol should not be the drink of choice when you're performing. And seriously, it almost always ends with every performer that you've seen, good or bad, that you've seen get up there sloppy drunk, is getting pulled off or fighting their way off the stage.
Right.
And I think that we don't even highlight substance abuse in the industry.
Yes, definitely.
And that's a part of why I'm so proud that the Independent Artist Showcase I hosted, Control the Ville, not a lick of alcohol in the building.
Right.
water
exactly.
bottles,
Exactly.
Gatorade. A lot of people were not pleased, but we were, and all the performers, we didn't have a single fight, a broken bottle, a curse word, a finger, nothing.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
that
you're
substance
right.
abuse, I'm glad you spoke on that because that's real.
Yeah, it is, and I hear it all the time. Matter of fact, when I used to manage artists when I was a pup coming up, I had to pull him off stage because he was up there and he couldn't even grab the mic, and I had to snatch him off in front of everybody because I didn't want him to
Embarrass himself like
Exactly.
that. But you love him, and that's why you did that. A lot of
Exactly.
people, especially like those corporations we're talking about, would have let him look a fool and would have pocketed all the TMZ article money, all the Access Hollywood
Exactly.
money, all the Shade Room, and they would have let you send yourself straight on out. Don't care.
Exactly, and I say face with him. It's not so much him too, but it's also the promoter. Like, man, this promoter's not gonna book you again, you know, because they want to extend and they want to provide this platform for you. So we got to be mindful of having a solid look so we can keep the staging going. So.
And I think that's something that's characteristic of all three of y'all, having that solid look. Y'all are clean and cut.
Man,
now, I'm not saying that y'all are like these perfect people. Y'all are regular humans, but that on that business end, y'all don't play. The advertisement is there, the look is there, the class is there. Y'all aren't under, you know, social media posts or, you know, like I said, our shade room or what sleep under there, you know, calling people at their name, everything but a child of God. Seriously, I look at stuff like that. I get requests from artists, you know, emails every single day, and for every 10 I can find about 7 of them under somebody's comments talking crazy.
Oh yeah.
And they don't realize that that's why Alana never responded, and they'll comment or they'll meet me in real life and be like, Alana, you know, I never heard back from you. Brother, what you said under that man's podcast, I don't want nothing to do with. And that's serious. People look at stuff like that. Now, guys, I want to talk about y'all's just that independent work that you do. And Marc, I'm going to start with you. Tell me about the production you do. Tell me about the studio and just the impact that you're seeking to leave on these Tennessee communities.
Yeah, so I would definitely say the most important thing, and I said it before, giving them a quality experience. I think because of the barrier for entry being so low to production, you'll find a lot of people who are like, I'm a producer, and then you pull up to their bedroom and they have like a $30 Temu mic and a Scarlett interface, and there's nothing wrong with any of that, but that's what I did starting, and I wasn't charging anybody for it. I was just doing it to learn, and I think you have this separation of people in the city where some of them want to do it because they love it and they love the art of it and they love the culture, and you have some people who are like, I see rich rappers, I see engineers making a lot of money on here. I see, you know, this, that, and the third, and they want to open it just simply because it's going to make the money. And they don't actually want to grow, they just want cash. And that's really what I strive to eliminate. I try not to keep those kinds of people around, like, and I feel like you can really tell because they're not trying to put in the work either. And you want to find people who are going to put in the work. After I record them, they're going to be promoting it. I've worked with so many people where we've recorded like 20 or 30 tracks, and none of them have seen the light of day. They just like going in, paying me to be in the studio and, you know, post about it and look cool.
It's like an ego thing. And Trip, do you see a lot of those egos as an artist?
Definitely.
And kind of tell me how you separate yourself. And we've got about 1 minute left, so tell me how you're unique in that artistry, and then plug yourself in. Guys, plug yourself, and that's how we'll wrap this final segment.
I honestly just been doing it so long. Like you said, it's a separation from people that love it and the people that just chasing the dream or chasing the money from it. And me, I think I eliminated that years ago. And that's why I opened up Take a Trip Studios, like you said, to open up a quality place that people can come record, vibe. And then I know a lot of people around my age, so I wanted to bring that, you know what I'm saying? Like to show them, like, you don't gotta just be an artist too. Like in this game, you could be more than just an artist. You could be artist, producer, engineer, the studio owner. I do it all. So.
And you guys exemplify that you can be anything you want within this industry so long as you put the work in. You guys' work speaks for itself, and I encourage my viewers to continue to support these guys. And I want to thank my viewers for allowing me the space to just share one more perspective. I wish you a good morning.